said before the break, we'll be getting to UCF against the Power 5 over the past 18 years. And then we'll be looking at, obviously, the last 6 years from that. So let's get right into it. UCF is another team similar to Houston and really similar to Houston, where they had one or two very, very good years, but other than that, they haven't been particularly awesome. They had the undefeated season in 2017. They went 12-1 in 18, and then 10-3 in 19. Last year they went 6-4, and this year they are. Let's see. Take a look at them real quick. Of course, they don't have the record ready available. I'll tell you in a minute. But this year I don't recall them being. I mean, they're 4-3, not awesome, not terrible. They beat Boise State. I guess you could say that's a good win. They lose to Louisville. Power 5 game right there. They got embarrassed at Cincinnati. And other than that, they don't really play a whole lot of good teams this year. And that's that. That's pretty much all she wrote on that one. So, but UCF has a very common theme. We kind of touched on this a little bit with Houston, but UCF has more of a very, very common theme. They do not schedule a lot of Power 5 teams. Right, and there was the year in 2017 when they wanted to be, was it 17 when they went undefeated? Yes, 2017 they were 13-0, and they wanted to be crowned the champions because they were undefeated. However, the only Power 5 teams they beat that year were Maryland and 7th-ranked Auburn, which was a bowl game. You played two Power 5 teams, one of them really not that great, and I don't know. Like, is that really grounds for being the best in the country? No, that's why they weren't. And in last year they played, or this year they only have one Power 5 team on the schedule. That was Louisville. They lost. Last year, the COVID year, they beat Georgia Tech, the only Power 5 team they played. 2019 they only had two Power 5 games. 2018 they only had two. 17, 16, and 15 they only had two in each of them. And they from 2015 and 16, they were 0-4 in those games. So and since 2017, so 2017 to now, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're 5-1, 2, 3. They're 5-3, which is respectable. But since 2003, they're 12-31, which comes out against Power 5 competition, which comes out to a 27.9 win percentage. And since 2015, they're 5-7, a 41.7 win percentage. And as I mentioned, they're 5-3 since 2017. So they're getting, I guess you could say they're gonna be better. I don't know. I'm not totally buying it, but I think when we take a look at UCF, they've kind of been an oddball team, right? They had a year where they were like really, really good. Or they had 3 years where they were really, really good, and I think now you're looking at them as a kind of team that's kind of struggled to get back to where they were before. And prior to 2017, they were, they had a good year every now and then they had maybe two or three good years, 2 bad years, and then another 2 or 3 good years. So they kind of have a pattern that they're establishing. But again, that's in a weak conference. I don't know how they're going to do once the competition gets amped up for when they go to the Big 12. I did not add their game against Cincinnati. I think they were third. Were they third when Cincinnati played them? I don't know. That's what we're going to say. And they lost. What was that? 56-21. They lost 56-21 Cincinnati, and that was 2021 this year. We'll make that a red loss. So that's one more loss they have. And then now that'll be 3-6. So since 2003, against top 25, this was very eye-opening to me. Very, very eye-opening. And I don't know how the fans... And actually, I want to bring up a comment from YouTube real quick. There was a guy that I respected what he had to say because I think he was definitely a UCF fan, but but he kind of, I think he leveled with me more than anybody else, and he had like, you know, a very like, kind of like nice comment about it, but I'll find it here in a little bit. UCF, the thing with them is, if I'm not sure how people are going to react on them, I think people were very strong in their thoughts on BYU and Cincinnati. But UCF, they, as I mentioned, they don't schedule a lot of Power 5 teams. Entering the Big 12 will definitely help with that, right? They enter the Big 12, they're not gonna have a choice but to schedule Power 5 teams. But when they play top 25 teams, they are not very good at all. Over the past 18 years, they have only won 5 games against top 25 teams, and all of those have come since 2013. Or I'm sorry, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, that's wrong then. Okay, how did I mess that up? Because that's 6. Okay, all right, check me on that. 6. That really changes things, doesn't it? Since 2003, they're 6-20 against top 25, and they had 1 win in 2009, but 5 of those 6 wins have come from 2013 to from 2013 on, and that's my point, right? One of them was a shootout against Memphis in 2017. They beat Auburn in 2017 in the bowl game, and then they beat Cincinnati in 2018. However, other than that, things are not really looking all that great from them. You know, they're 3-6 since 2015, and they haven't won a game against a top 25 team since 2018. And you know, there's not a whole lot of good things to draw from them playing top 25 teams. You know, they don't schedule a lot of Power 5 teams, and they're not very good against top 25. Which, you know, again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a totally unreasonable guy, but when you don't schedule a lot of games against the better teams in the country, and then when you play really good teams in the country and you lose very often, I'm sorry, but the only conclusion I can really draw from that is that they're not going to be very good, or if they are going to be very good, it's going to take a long time for them to get things rolling. So, I mean, again, as I mentioned about 20 million times over the course of the show, I'm not saying that this is the only reason that this is just a pattern, and these are just statistics. These are just numbers that I'm throwing out there that maybe you didn't know these numbers. Maybe you didn't know what their record against against top 25 or whatever was. I'm just putting that out there so you can say, wow, okay, that's interesting to think about, right? I'm not saying, again, as I mentioned, I'm not saying they didn't beat so-and-so 20 years ago, so that means they can't beat them 5 years from now. That's bogus, so that's not what I'm saying. Like, I know that that's not, something that makes sense. They haven't beaten, since 2011, they haven't beaten BYU once. Against current Big 12 teams, they're 1-5 since 2003. The last time they played a Big 12 team was in 2013 when they played Baylor in a bowl game. So they haven't. So that's very similar to what I said about Houston, where they haven't played a lot of. I mean, more so than Houston, they haven't played a lot of Big 12 teams over the past 10 years. So, I mean, hey, maybe they go in the Big 12, and maybe it's because they play those teams. They haven't played them before. Maybe, because we're going to see them play teams that we haven't seen them play. Maybe they come out and they have a lot of success against them. I don't know. As I said earlier, the only thing that anybody can do right now is speculate. But when I take a look at all these losses over the past 6 years, I'm not really sure what I can say about that. Let's see, there was here's the comment from on the Cincinnati video where I told him, I said, he was talking about how he said Power 5 teams refused to schedule UCF in Cincinnati because they didn't want to have a loss to a Group of 5 team. Now they'll be in the Big 12. More Power 5 teams will schedule UCF and Cincy out of conference, which is fair. That's a very good comment that he had. I agree with that. It's something I probably overlooked in my analysis. And I told him, I said, this is unrelated to what you said, but just a warning, I don't think you're going to like what my thoughts on UCF are when I get to that in a couple weeks. And he said, It's all good. Everything has gotten better for UCF since they started in 1979 playing in a former cow pasture. Our head coach was a volunteer, as well as the assistants, and all the players were walk-ons. There are no scholarships for Division III, so anything we get in the Big 12 is just leaps and bounds better than where we started, which is very good point. I think that's that was very eye-opening thing to see. It gave me a little bit of a history lesson on UCF, and that's very interesting to see. And you can say that from a lot of teams. It's very interesting to see where a team started, and kind of how they have how they've progressed over the years and where they are now compared to where they were before. Because again, as you said, humble beginnings for UCF, and on a former cow pasture, now they're going to be a Big 12 team playing with the big boys every year. But again, I think that for me at least, I need to have a bigger sample size for me to really make a strong claim against UCF. And I don't have that right now, and that's kind of what I'm saying is I'm not sure, but from what I do have, I'm not particularly pleased. I'm not jumping out of my seat saying, "Wow, UCF is going to be dominant." I'm just not seeing it. So some other and another thing that people kind of said to me about the whole thing was what teams would you take in the Big 12, right? If you don't like any of these teams, who would you take? And Cincinnati, I don't know if people didn't listen to what I said, but I said Cincinnati has the best chance out of any of them, right? I said Cincinnati's probably a good move. I just haven't seen enough from them for me to say whether or not they're going to be awesome or not. And I guess people didn't like that. I guess people wanted me to come out and just say that with no evidence at all. They wanted me to say that, Cincinnati's going to be the next Oklahoma. I don't really know where that came from, but the BYU fans, let's just forget about them. I don't know. They didn't like me at all. I don't care. Just putting that out there. So, I took a look at some other teams and kind of where they are compared to these other teams, and USF Southern Florida, not particularly amazing. Since 2015, Southern Florida is 7-8 against Power 5, and that was mainly in part due to a good year in 2016 and 17. And however, I think what people have said a few things that kind of made me confused when I talked about BYU and Cincy, and that was that they beat so and so, right? I think the thing with Houston was or BYU, I mean, the thing with them was they're 8-1 against Oklahoma and Texas or whatever. They're 7-1 combined against Oklahoma and Texas. As I said before, those teams are not going to be in the Big 12 when it matters, for when these four teams join. And B, I think the last time that BYU had played Texas or Oklahoma was 2014. Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying to them is, okay, so anytime you beat a good team 6 years ago, we're just going to let you in, right? So because UCF beat 18th ranked Florida State in 2009 and they beat BYU in 2009, we're just going to let them in, right? That's it. That's all we need from them, right? That's all we got to see, right? Is that it? Because that argument is really silly to me. And USF, right? Maybe their record against Power 5 is somewhat good, but that's when they're playing Illinois, right? Their wins have come against South Carolina, Illinois, Texas Tech, Georgia Tech, and again Illinois, and those are from 2016 to 18. I think it is very evident when Southern Florida plays good teams. It is very similar to UCF and Houston, where they can't keep up, and that's when they lose a lot. Right, from 2011 to 2015, they had lost 18 straight games against Power 5 competition, and since 2015, they're 2-11 against top 25 teams. So USF, I don't want to hear anything about them joining either. I haven't gotten a chance to look at Memphis yet. That's another team that I was thinking about. Maybe I don't know the numbers on them yet. I'd be interested to see what the numbers are on them. If anybody has done any research on that, please let me know. I would love to see how they have fared. SMU is another team that I think a lot of people were getting hyped up about. A lot of people said, I want to see SMU join the Big 12. And let's just hold your horses on SMU right now. Since 2015, they're 2-7 against Power 5 competition, and both of those wins have come against TCU, and both of those wins have been in the last 3 years. Other than that, they haven't beaten a Power 5 team since 2011. And very similar to USF and Houston and UCF is that SMU against top 25 not very good either. They're 2 and I guess I didn't finish this up here real quickly though. They're 2-15 since 2015 against top 25. Their only wins have come against Memphis and TCU. Both those teams were ranked 25th. So, like, I don't know, like, a lot of these teams, and that's my point on these teams, is that's my point when I say that the American Athletic is a weak conference. All these teams, sure, they can win 8 games when they're playing really, bottom of the barrel teams every year, but as soon as they have to play a tough team, they crumble. And that's the theme on these teams. And, I mean, and could it change out of nowhere? I guess, right? Anything can happen. But when there's a theme on a team, when there is a pattern that has like a 20-year pattern, it's going to be awfully difficult for me to say no, that's just going to change out of nowhere. All right, just so you watch, that's gonna change, right? I mean, it could, but the probability of that is very low. The one team that I would like to see join the Big 12 or maybe join a Power 5 conference is Boise State. Right? They're the best team out of, other than maybe Cincinnati and I guess maybe BYU. BYU hasn't been particularly sharp against Power 5. But, Boise State's a team that I think needs to be getting more respect. And, I guess maybe they say that, they don't want to be in or whatever, right? I don't know what's going on there. I haven't really looked too deep into it. But, this year they beat BYU, a team, I think they were number 9 at the time of the matchup, I believe. So, let's see, I think it was 9th ranked BYU they beat, right? And the score of that one was 26-17, BSU 2021. So, Boise State, just a little, one thing to look at before we hit up commercial break, is since 2015 they're 6-6 against Power 5 competition, 50%. Since 2003 they're 21-18, a 53.8 win percentage. And you look at their schedule, they're in the Mountain West, not a super strong conference, but I think that the Mountain West is a tougher conference than the American Athletic. Boise State has done really well. The last time they had a losing season was actually, they haven't had a losing season at all over the past 18 years. So, like, if you want to talk about prolonged success, Boise State is that team for me. Against top 25, they're 4-5. Actually, they're probably 5-5 now, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, they have won 50% of their games against top 25. Excuse me, since 2015, and they've won 15 out of 29. So they're a touch over 50%. Since 2003. So for me, at least, people say, well, you're just going to sit up there and, if you're complaining about it, which I'm not, I'm just saying these are the facts. I don't know how you take this and say they're going to be good. People say, okay, well, what team would you want to see in? Boise State is the team for me. And I'm sure people are going to somehow say, no, Boise State's bad, or, somehow I'm going to be quote unquote wrong about that. So whatever.